Good morning. It's May the 16th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net. Good morning, Rev Cindy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty fantastic, Al. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Not too bad. You know, I got a bit of a cough here, but it'll go away.
Eventually. Yeah, well, you had that Monday, so you sound a lot better than you did this past Monday.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Getting some rest too, so that's
Good.
helping. Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah. Just so everybody's wondering, Glenn's off today, but as you see, Rev Cindy is filling in for him, and we've got a few stories of cannabis and psychedelics that we're going to cover today. So why don't we just get straight to her, Cindy?
Sounds good.
All right, first one's up.
First story is coming to us from StratCan. Cannabis stores in Ontario sold nearly $2 billion worth of cannabis in 2023.
Cannabis stores in Ontario sold nearly $2 billion for the cannabis in 2023 to more than 10 million people, a 12% increase in sales from the previous year. This was equivalent of 338 million grams of cannabis, a 23% increase from the prior year. Ontario added 80 new licensed cannabis stores in this time period. The province authorized 276 new stores, a decrease from 497 added in 2022. Another 142 closed in 2023, up from 114 in 2022.
Wow. The new report from the OCS is the first of its kind from the agency since the fourth quarter in 2022. The agency plans to update and publish its by the numbers data report twice per year. As the largest wholesale distributor of legal cannabis in the world, the OCS is proud to deliver comprehensive data aimed at informing Ontarians and supporting industry partners as we enable Canada's largest and most vibrant cannabis marketplace. And this is by David Lobo, who is the president and CEO of the OCS.
Total cannabis sales in 2023 through authorized cannabis stores in Ontario were $1,941,213,130. The OCS shipped 94,507,896 units to some 1,700 privately owned stores from its distribution center in Guelph. That's a 26% increase from 2022. The average wholesale price of dried cannabis flower was $4.05 a gram, not including HST. As of December the 31st, 2023, there were 3,983 total active products SKUs listed by the OCS.
Okay, I just while you were reading, I went back and I did the math. So it was nearly $2 billion for 338 million grams, which works out to be $5.92 average per gram, according to the math.
Oh, okay, because they're saying $4.05 here in the article.
Yeah. I did the actual math. So maybe it's like where it's nearly $2 billion, you know.
Right.
The actual numbers. Dried flowers and pre-rolls were the bulk of the SKUs, 28% for dried flower and 21% of them for the pre-rolls, followed by concentrates, which includes infused pre-rolls. That's how the legal market runs infused pre-rolls. They go onto the concentrate side. So all concentrates are about 50%. Vapes there's 14% of the SKUs are vapes, 10% are edibles, 5% are extracts, which is ingestible oils or tablets. It's kind of like concentrates. Beverages were at 5%, and then there's 2% of the SKUs are topical. So very few topicals out there.
I don't understand, Cindy. I can't understand why recreational topicals wouldn't have a higher number.
Gee, I'm gonna put this on my elbow for fun.
I like this facial scrub. I really enjoy this.
This is a great Saturday night. Woo! The wholesale price of all cannabis flower, including pre-rolls, dropped compared to 2022, except for 7-gram SKUs, which increased slightly. But I have to agree with that. Dried flower prices in the legal market, recreational market, have come down a lot. On average, they were $8 to $9 when they first opened,
Yeah.
4 to 5. On average, there are still some $9 and $10 grams out there.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But we have that in the medical side too. So
yeah, they say about 1/5, 20% of Ontarians say they consume cannabis on a regular basis, with 27% indicating they consume occasionally. More than half report purchasing cannabis only from legal stores, while 39% report purchasing from legal and illegal sources. Just 7% say they only buy from illegal sources. Nearly 3/4 of the Ontarians say legalizing cannabis has been good for Canada, and there were 9 product recalls for cannabis in Ontario in 2023 compared to 6 in 2022 and 10 in 2021. So there you go. Some big numbers, that's legal sales. That doesn't include obviously the illegal sales or the Indigenous sales.
Yes, which for the purposes of that article, I think they put the Indigenous sales under the illegal, right? I mean, anything that's not under the OCS is
they may consider it illegal.
Yeah. But I mean, I find it like there are a lot of people. I mean, and not a lot of people are going to admit that when they've got the government calling them, or what they perceive as the government calling them and asking them about, hey, where do you buy your weed? They're going to be legally.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell my buddy down the street.
Yeah.
All righty, you ready? On to the next story.
Absolutely. Coming to us from neuroscience, psilocybin shows promise in anorexia treatment.
Nice. Here's a quick summary. They say a new study highlights the potential of psilocybin found in magic mushrooms as its treatment for anorexia nervosa, a psychiatric disorder with one of the highest mortality rates. The research demonstrated that psilocybin enhances cognitive flexibility and body weight maintenance in an animal model of AN.
The study uncovered a specific brain mechanism by which psilocybin could alleviate rigid thought patterns associated with AN, suggesting a new direction for therapeutic strategies beyond traditional antidepressants, which are often ineffective in underweight anorexia patients. This breakthrough could lead to more effective target treatments for the cognitive symptoms of anorexia. And there are some key facts listed here.
Psilocybin improved both cognitive flexibility and body weight maintenance in a female rat model that had anorexia. Number 2 was the study identified a specific brain mechanism through which psilocybin affects anorexia thinking, potentially opening the door for targeted therapies. Traditional treatments like SSRIs have not been effective in improving clinical symptoms in underweight individuals with AN, highlighting the need for new approaches like psilocybin.
Yeah, and the source is Monash University. Characterized by pathological weight loss driven by restrictive feeding and excessive exercise behaviors, anorexia nervosa has one of the highest mortality rates of any psychiatric disease. Some small clinical trials have shown that psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, may be a potential treatment for anorexia.
The condition is characterized by cognitive inflexibility or rigid thinking, and there is evidence that psilocybin acts to increase this flexibility. However, crucial to the use of the medicine as a recognized treatment for anorexia is the need to understand how psilocybin actually works in the brain. Now, a study led by Dr. Claire Foldy found the Monash University Biomedicine Discovery Institute and published in the journal Molecular Psychiatry has studied psilocybin in an animal model of anorexia, revealing that it improves body weight maintenance in female rats and facilitates cognitive, I'll never get that word out right, flexibility.
Well, you said it perfectly.
Oh,
Immortality. Importantly, the Monash researchers found a specific mechanism within the brain by which psilocybin works to make anorexic thinking more pliable, opening the way for targeted therapies. According to Dr. Foldy, while selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, antidepressants, are the leading pharmacology treatment, they are used off-label, which meaning like they're using them for something besides depression. Although, trust me, somebody who has anorexia is suffering from depression.
Right.
And they do not improve clinical symptoms in underweight individuals with anorexia, she said.
Cognitive inflexibility is a hallmark of the condition, often arising before symptoms of anorexia are obvious and persisting after weight recovery, making this symptom a primary target for therapeutic intervention.
Yeah.
So there you go.
The basic abstract says psilocybin has shown promise for alleviating symptoms of depression and is currently in clinical trials for the treatment of anorexia, a condition that is characterized by persistent cognitive inflexibility. And considering that enhanced cognitive flexibility after psilocybin treatment is reported to occur in individuals with depression, it is plausible that psilocybin could improve symptoms of AN by breaking down cognitive inflexibility. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Yes. Yeah. I see there's more here. I'm going through thinking it's over, but then it continues on. Mechanistic understanding of the actions of psilocybin is required to tailor the clinical application of psilocybin to individuals most likely to respond with positive outcomes. This only can be achieved using incisive neurobiological approaches in animal models. Here we use the activity-based anorexia rat model and comprehensively assess aspects of reinforcement learning to show that psilocybin, posed accurately, improves body weight maintenance in female rats and facilitates cognitive flexibility, specifically via improved adaptation to the initial reversal of a reward contingencies.
And further, we reveal the involvement of signaling through the serotonin, which is the 5-HT1A and the 5-HT2A receptor subtypes in specific aspects of learning, demonstrating that the serotonin 1A negates the cognitive enhancing effect of psilocybin. Moreover, we show that psilocybin elicits a transient increase and decrease in cortical transcription of the receptors, and further reduction of the abundance of HTR2A transcripts in rats exposed to the ABA model. Together, these findings support the hypothesis that psilocybin could
Never seen that word before.
Ameliorate cognitive inflexibility in the context of AN and highlight a need to better understand the therapeutic mechanisms independent of the 5-HT2A receptor binding.
All righty, it's over now. Okay. There we go. That's that's good. You know, if I've known people in the past who have dealt with anorexia, and if this is a way to help them, then
yeah.
I
mean, and basically what they're saying there in a bunch of scientific words are, there are broken synapses and broken things going on in the brain, and one of the side effects of that happening could be anorexia. And if they can fix that, which psilocybin does very, very well, they can get people thinking about food correctly, and that would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah. We got a comment from the Glass Girl. She says, crazy that they can't use human subjects for these studies.
Yeah, it's the way that science, legal science goes. They do it with mice or rats, and then once they can prove it that way, they will start a double-blind study with humans.
Right.
Willing to do it.
Yeah, because they got some similarities to humans.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. On to the next story.
Pardon me. Coming to us from MJ Biz Daily. The average THC potency of illicit marijuana cannabis flower is 16%, the DEA says.
The average THC potency of illicit cannabis flower in the United States is 16%, according to the DEA. That's well below the THC levels seen in the commercial cannabis stores, where accusations of THC potency inflation have been circulating for years. It's not only happening there, it's happening here.
Happening everywhere. Citing data from the University of Mississippi's Cannabis Monitoring Program, which tests seized illicit cannabis submitted for analysis by the DEA, as well as state and local law enforcement, the DEA noted a decades-long sharp and steady increase in cannabis potency that's accelerated in recent years. The 16% potency is an increase of 29% from 2021, according to the DEA.
Yeah, the agency reports the potency of the THC in leafy cannabis is at an all-time high, increasing the potential risk of negative effects on users of any form of the drug and on children who may consume edibles made with these substances. Sources of seized marijuana include illegal grows operated by transnational criminal organizations, including Mexican drug cartels, as well as Asian drug trafficking organizations that hide behind state cannabis laws, the DEA noted.
Yeah, high-profile examples include nearly 28 tons of cannabis shipped from an Oklahoma grow facility licensed by Oklahoma Medical Cannabis Authority, the report found. What's behind the rise in potency? There's no clear answer as to why illicit cannabis would be significantly weaker than cannabis sold in the regulated stores that bemoan unlicensed competition.
Well, that's an average 16%, right? Did that include some really low, like CBD strains, so on and so
I would
forth?
think, right? They're like, I've been confused for this story because they're like, oh, it's so high, 16%. And I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no clear answer to why illicit cannabis would be significantly weaker than cannabis sold on the regulated stores that bemoan unlicensed competition. One theory is that THC percentage of lab-tested commercial cannabis has been grossly inflated as a result of market pressures.
On the aggregate, cost-conscious consumers gravitate towards cannabis flower with the most THC, even though, as many experts stress, that's not a reliable indicator of quality. As a result, producers are keen to find the lab that will return favorable results, according to the theory.
And labs wishing to retain cannabis or retain business are pressured to return high results. One study of Colorado commercial cannabis found flower THC potency inflated by 23% to 35%. And in California, average THC potency decreased by 7% in the first 3 months of 2024 after a change in the state law governing how labs test for THC. Yeah, and we have a problem right here in Ontario where the OCS is now doing randomized testing to check to see if the potency is equivalent to what's allowed by law.
Yeah. Well, one of the LPs just had a recall because they had the wrong. We reported on it on Monday. Had the wrong percentage on there, and and they're just going to destroy that. It's not going to get relabeled and resold. So,
all righty. On to our last story before we go to break.
Coming to us from StratCan, Alberta makes changes to retail secure storage, simulated or actual mixing of cannabis, and more.
Yeah, I was curious what this was all about. New cannabis stores in Alberta may have a chance to save money on their secure storage rooms after recently announced regulatory changes from the AGLC. The changes were part of a handful announced by Alberta Gaming, Liquor, and Cannabis on May the 10th. Retailers can also now use samples from producers in sensory containers in store, along with changes to record keeping for such sensory displays. The AGLC also removed a section of their provincial rules that had previously prohibited the simulated act of mixing cannabis in retail stores.
The last piece is a reference to a section from the Provincial Retail Cannabis Handbook that had previously prohibited the simulated or actual mixing, application, or consumption of cannabis with other ingredients or substances. A request from clarification was made to the AGLC on May 13th. No reply was available as of press time.
Oh, that's too bad. This section was removed from concerns what kinds of activities are permitted in cannabis stores. Previously, there were more restrictions on what types of activities can occur within a cannabis store other than the sale of cannabis. A source close to the issue explained to StratCan that while a store still cannot be used for activities not related to cannabis, for example, hosting an art show or yoga class, events or activities that are directly related to cannabis can now occur within the store. The section that had previously prohibited a cost being charged to the public directly or indirectly to attend an activity in a retail store was also removed as part of this recent set of changes.
So now, when I'm in Ontario, I have noticed that some of the legal stores, the last time I was there for the Karma Cup, legal stores were hosting comedy shows. Is that what Alberta? I'm wondering if that's what Alberta is saying can happen now. Like there's a cannabis comedy show, and they can host it. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Puff Mama is doing it at a Spirit Leaf store.
On a regular basis. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of the changes are just cleaning up aspects of the Retail Cannabis Handbook, but include the announcement that the AGLC may now approve alternative construction methods to secure cannabis rooms. As of January 2024, the AGLC no longer requires retailers to keep their products in locked display cases when the store is closed. However, these new changes can still mean significant savings for any future stores seeking to create a secure storage area.
Now, according to Dale Naily, he's Minister of Service Alberta and Red Tape Reduction. Oh, that's an interesting name, Red Tape Reduction. It says that we've been looking at the cannabis market to determine what's working, what needs to be improved, and what's redundant or unnecessary while protecting public health and safety. Naily has been one of the provincial government's key voices on regulatory change for the cannabis industry through the Red Tape Reduction Act. Naily and other ministers and Alberta MLAs were also part of a recent provincial cannabis industry lobbying day on May the 9th in Edmonton, put together by an Alberta-based consulting firm that works in the cannabis space.
Alberta has led the country on several recent cannabis regulatory changes. In addition, in 2022, the province removed the requirement for window coverings for cannabis retailers. And in 2023, Alberta began allowing producers to hand out samples at cannabis events. Yes.
Come on, the rest of the country, you got to do the same thing.
The AGLC also announced in late 2023 that the agency had reduced the SKU listing fee for cannabis producers. Previously at $1,500, they reduced the cost to list a new SKU to sell in the Alberta market is now $250, which is a beautiful decrease.
Oh, that's a huge decrease. Yeah, I guess that's paying for them to do it. All right, there we go. We got the first half in. Time for us to take a break, pay some bills, all that stuff here from our sponsors. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Education and News. We're found here at paceradio.net. And I got to find the commercial. It's behind my paperwork.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Canitex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
We're back from a medication break, and we got about 1, 2, 3, 4 more stories to bring to everybody. Hey, there we go. First one's up.
Coming to us from Cannabis Now, Weed Plus, the healing mystique of magic mushrooms.
Interesting. The winter sun was beating down through the open windows of my older sister's Porsche as we cruised down Pico Boulevard towards the beach, bumper to bumper with other cars in the westward traffic of a warm Sunday afternoon in Los Angeles. Sounds nice. She says, "The smell's good," she hollered to the guys in the next car over. Pot smoke filling the space between the lanes. They motioned to pass a joint through the open windows to my two best pals and I giggling in the back seat. I was 18. And by this point familiar with the terrain of a cannabis high, but I want to keep my head clear for later, for what my sister described as weed plus.
I spent my first semester of college smoking cannabis out of a hookah with friends. I love smoking cannabis out of a hookah. My nights ablaze as one does in Berkeley. In the daytime, I burrow into a pile of books about psychedelic counterculture for an upcoming research paper. I had become obsessed with Aldous Huxley's The Door of Perception, as if I'd read the guidebook to Paris before a trip. I decided that all my academic probing into psychedelics better culminate in lived experience. So I bought a half ounce of shrooms and headed to Venice Beach with a few friends for our first time tripping. My older sister, a dedicated stoner and a cannabis attorney of 14 years, my senior, along with a family friend who was a medical cannabis doctor and a seasoned psychonaut, were there to guide us in case things got too weird. And unlike acid, which I still hadn't tried at that point, mushrooms felt like the next level up from cannabis. That is weed plus, in the words of my sister. The psychedelic experience or trip would be longer than a regular cannabis high, but shorter than 12 hours of LSD. After that first time tripping, I soon learned that, for me, mushrooms and cannabis bring on similar visuals of swirling floral patterns and paisleys in pink Technicolor palettes.
Oh.
Wow.
My first time taking mushrooms was easily one of the best, most significant days of my life. Playful, exploratory, spiritual. I felt like I was reborn, discovering the world and its wonders for the first time. The shrooms had turned down the volume on the anxiety that defined my day-to-day and turned up the volume on my appreciation for life. For the first time, the phrase, "be here now," meant something to me on an embedded level. But like Ram Dass, who ventured to India after coming up and down on countless psychiatric trips during his tenure as a psychiatry professor at Harvard in the 1960s, I too wondered why it seemed I needed mushrooms to feel the way I did. I asked myself, would I be able to get there on my own one day? It's a common adage that one can accomplish the same degree of healing in a single psychedelic trip that might otherwise require years of therapy. By the same token, in the psychedelic community, it's often said that the journey is the medicine. In other words, such as in the case of mushrooms, it's not just the psilocybin, the main part of the plant that spurs neurological reset. It's the experience of the trip itself. This can come with the insights, challenges, and joys that can consequently foster lessons and memories that nourish the soul and last a lifetime. Science can only attempt to describe this alternative headspace.
Absolutely. Many well-known research institutions such as Johns Hopkins and UCLA are exploring how psilocybin is being used for mental health treatments and can occasion a mystical experience defined by scale scores of 7 criteria. What scientists are finding is that the degree to which the patient undergoes a mystical experience often correlates to the degree of healing they experience for whatever condition they are treating, be it anxiety, depression, or something else. When you optimally screen, facilitate, and integrate these psychedelic experiences, you can almost reliably facilitate a mystical level kind of encounter, which may be predictive of positive therapeutic outcomes. And that is said by Dr. Charles Grob, who is a psychedelic researcher and UCLA professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences.
To put it bluntly, the promise of psychedelic therapy is forcing researchers to grapple with notions of God or mysticism that have otherwise been absent from Western science and medicine. Indigenous cultures, on the other hand, are well known for structure and spiritual medicinal approaches and traditions that incorporate psychedelic plant medicine such as ayahuasca, magic mushrooms, or peyote. Grob notes that clinicians have much to learn from indigenous practices, which were entirely dependent on a harmonious relationship with the world of nature for shelter, for food, for continuality, and for social groups.
Yeah, he goes on to say that the psychedelic experience may be symbolic of a death and rebirth ritual. This could be thanks to the experience of ego death, a psychedelic-induced dampening of the brain's default mode network, the DMN, where ego resides. Ego death, or ego dissolution, can act as a reset for the DMN, helping to rewire thought patterns that were otherwise constrained by the ego, and facilitating an increase in personality traits like openness or empathy. In breaking out of old thought patterns, a person who experiences ego death may also obtain a degree of healing from habits that previously kept them in a loop, particularly in addiction. Turning down the volume on the ego can also help, engender a sense of oneness with the surrounding world, people, or nature.
Grob says, the ego is looking after us. There's good reason to be compassionate towards the ego. It's trying to do its best, but it's not useful, and it overshoots in what it does and disconnects us. What psychedelics do is turn down the defenses. The ego defenses can manifest in addictions such as eating disorders, compulsions, and obsessions. They're all a maladaptive defense response to adversity, says Dr. Robin Carhart Harris, head of the Center of Psychedelic Research at Imperial College London.
Through psychedelic therapy, Grob says, we can engineer a context in which it's safe to let the ego go off duty and allow us to be vulnerable in a caring, nurturing environment. It's about going backwards to go forward, he said, being vulnerable to be stronger, more flexible, and more capacious. Finding the right setting for a psychedelic experience is up to the beholder. It could be in a therapist's office, a spiritual ceremony, with friends at a music concert, or decidingly alone in the woods. Once that ideal setting is found, one can relax and focus his or her mindset on whatever kind of healing or intention they set out to explore with the help of psychedelic medicine.
Even back in the 60s, Grob says pioneer researchers found that those who had a mystical level experience had improved quality of life. With psilocybin in particular, he says, the replicability and degree to which the trip might happen and the depth is more apparent than perhaps from other psychedelics such as LSD, because the 6 to 8 hour trip is easier to control than something that could otherwise be twice as long.
Mm-hmm. Despite the growing amount of research, psychedelic scientists have yet to fully comprehend how substances such as psilocybin work in the brain. Psilocybin definitely stimulates the serotonin receptor in the brain and can occasion ego death by dampening the default mode network. Even so, the compound remains a bit of a mystery. That said, there's mounting evidence that psilocybin, much like cannabis, can facilitate healing from a variety of mental health conditions, including anxiety, depression, addiction, and eating disorders, among many others. It can also increase the personality trait of openness, allowing the afflicted to become more amendable to new patterns or solutions, and enhancing general well-being for those who are otherwise already well.
While people who use cannabis medicinally can get a great deal of relief from chronic pain or mood disturbances, Grob says it's more of a lifestyle drug. The effects of cannabis can dwarfed in comparison with the potential that psilocybin or LSD might have in invoking a powerful altered state of consciousness that allows individuals to see themselves and the world around them and their lives in a novel manner, he says. In other words, psilocybin offers more bang for your buck if you compare it to regular cannabis use.
Around the peak of that Venice Beach mushroom trip so long ago, my friends and I decided to venture out of our apartment and head to the ocean. As the sun set and the temp started to cool, the winds picked up. I'm shivering, but it's not me, I said through chattering teeth. I looked down at my hands with curiosity, flipping my palm over and under, upside and down, as if it were somebody else's hand.
I plopped down on the shore, near the Sunset Drum circle that takes place every Sunday. It smelled like weed, but I wondered how many others were also on shrooms. I remembered what my sister had said about psilocybin feeling like weed plus, but this was much better. So much better. There's no competition, Grubb said, when comparing psilocybin and cannabis. The psilocybin experience has the potential of facilitating a life-changing event, precisely how I felt about one of the best and most significant days of my life.
Yeah. A huge smile crept across my face, and I was feeling more in touch with my essence than ever before. Oh, be here now, I giggled, referencing the phrase and title of Ram Dass's famous book, which my parents had introduced me to as a child. I get it, I thought. It was the first time I felt that sacred sense of time and space, of being in the moment, in my body, without feeling an attachment to the chronological series of events that took me here. I just was, feeling a sense of isness. I was simply being, and my nervous system, with all of its anxieties and temporal attachments, was for once at rest.
My memory of that mind-bending Venice Beach experience remains vivid. The spiritual nourishment and sense of mystique from that day are still with me, infusing my life with the magic of those mushrooms. These are like walking dreams, Grobe said. Sometimes it's important to just sit back and look objectively at the scene playing in front of you and how that relates to your life.
Wow.
There you go.
I love the way she put a lot of that stuff. That was really, really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Got a couple comments. I'm just checking them over here. All righty. That one's done. Move on to the next story. I'll get her all lined up for us here. I was just reviewing the comments there. But you ready?
I am.
Is there one you want to post?
No, that's okay. It's going to take me a while to figure it out. Maybe I need some mushrooms.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next one's up.
Coming to us from International Cannabis Business Conference. Second pillar of German cannabis legalization inches forward.
Big leaf. When lawmakers in Germany agreed to legalize cannabis for adult use, they planned on rolling out German legalization in two phases or pillars. The first pillar involved legalizing the cultivation, possession, and consumption of cannabis by adults, along with permitting non-commercial cannabis clubs. The second pillar will involve launching regional adult use cannabis commerce pilot trials. And according to domestic reporting in Germany, the regulatory body that will oversee the pilot trials was recently identified as a circulate proposal.
A draft regulation is being circulated in Germany Cannabis Association circles, and the ministry led by Kem Odsonmere is proposing that the enforcement authority for the authorization and monitoring of the use of cannabis for scientific purposes be vested in the Federal Agency for Agriculture and Food. We are hopeful that a practical way will be created to legally sell cannabis products in Germany, at least in some scientific projects, said Jürgen Neumenheier from the Cannabis Industry Association, according to the initial reporting by Spiegel.
Neumeyer also went on to say that there is great interest among our members. Without an opportunity to sell cannabis directly to consumers, we will not be able to push back the black market. Whereas the European Union profits nationwide recreational cannabis sales, regional adult use cannabis commerce pilot trials are permitted by the European Union because they are focused on research. Such pilot trials are already underway in Switzerland and the Netherlands, although they are more limited in size and scope compared to what is expected in Germany.
Germany's regional adult use cannabis pilot programs cannot launch until rules and regulations are in place, and that cannot happen without a regulatory entity overseeing the nation's cannabis pilot programs. With that in mind, the proposal for the Federal Agency for Agriculture and Food to be that entity is a significant milestone for Germany's continued legalization implementation effort. Cannabis supporters in Germany, in Germany's government, appear to be pursuing the regulatory route through the Federal Agency for Agriculture and Food rather than pursuing a separate piece of legislation to launch pilot programs. Government officials seem convinced that the agency's regulatory authority is already established and that going this route will, expedite the launch of the pilot trials in Germany.
Meanwhile, the first reading of a readjustment measure will occur in the Bundestag this week, with the reading set to occur on Thursday, May the 16th, which is today at 9 p.m. tonight. Now, according to just seeing the website, the Bundestag website, it says that just a few weeks after the adoption of the consumer cannabis law, the coalition factions of the SPD Alliance 90, the Greens, and FDP want to readjust the regulation. The draft law to amend the Consumer Cannabis Act and the Medical Cannabis Act is to be discussed in the first reading on Thursday, which is today, and after a 30-minute debate will be referred to in the lead health committee for further discussion.
30 minutes. Wow.
Mhm.
The coalition factions bill to amend the Road Traffic Act and the other road traffic regulations, which is not yet available but is also up for discussion and is intended to set a cannabis limit in road traffic, should be referred to the Transport Committee, the Bunstang announcement also stated. And the announcement also lists the following: amendment to the Consumer Cannabis Act. The background to the readjustment of the is the protocol statement that the federal government made on the Cannabis Act at the meeting of the Federal Council on March 22nd, 2024. It is said that the changes should take into account the concerns and wishes of the countries. The evaluation provided for the Consumer Cannabis Act is to be expanded, and the control of cultivation associations by the states is to be made more flexible.
In addition, the states should be given room for maneuver when dealing with large-scale cultivation areas. In addition, the Federal Center for Health Education is planning to develop a further training program for addiction prevention specialists in states and municipalities. Now, according to the amendment of the Road Traffic Act is intended to introduce a THC limit in road traffic and ban on alcohol for cannabis users. According to the new regulations, the limit value should be in future be 3.5 nanograms per millimeter. If you exceed that limit for the first time, you risk a fine of €500 and a 1-month driving ban.
Wow.
Canada is 5 nanograms.
Wow.
No,
Interesting.
3 to 5. There's a varying scale on that.
Yeah. Non-commercial cannabis clubs, which are part of the first pillar of Germany's new cannabis law, are still expected to launch in July of this year. A year ago, proposed regulations pertaining to Germany cannabis clubs were leaked and included the following: all club properties where cannabis is cultivated and or stored have to be tightly secured. Every club has to have a trained addiction and prevention officer. They must comply with residue limits for pesticides and fertilizers. They must track cannabis from seed. They must have annual reporting of crop amounts, including cannabinoid percentages. Club members only. 50 grams per month limited over 21, 30 grams per month 18 to 20. The THC cap for 18 to 20 years is at 10%. There has to be neutral packaging and labeled with specific harvest information.
Neutral packaging. What do you think? In addition to club provisions, items pertaining to individual use were also reportedly included in the previous leaked draft. Consumption would be prohibited within a radius of 250 meters from schools, daycare centers, playgrounds, and youth facilities or sports facilities, according to the leaked draft regulations. Also, consumption should also not be permitted in pedestrian zones between 7 and 8 p.m. Geez, 250 meter radius from schools. That's about 750 feet. So you're a little more than an eighth of a mile. Because I'm still in the mileage end of things. So that's a pretty big circle. I'd hate to live near something like that would restrict you. So
crazy.
Oh, it is. Yes, exactly. All right. Next story. She's up, ready to go.
Coming to us from cannabis.net. Whoever legalizes cannabis wins the presidency. Democrats file bill to legalize cannabis, but Republicans balk. Now what?
Cannabis.net covered how voters are looking at cannabis legalization as a key element of who they vote for in a new story titled "I Vote with My Bong." Data shows voters are more interested in cannabis politics than party lines when it comes to the Great Green Plant. Both political parties are starting to take a notice as poll numbers tighten up heading into November. Senate Democrats have reintroduced expansive legislation aimed at legalizing cannabis at the federal level. This marks a significant policy departure backed by broad public support. However, this year's passage seems improbable given the upcoming November elections and the current state of divided government.
The Democratic platform for federal cannabis laws is fully represented by the proposed bill by removing cannabis from the list of banned substances, where it is now ranked as one of the most dangerous and addictive drugs. Its main goal is to end federal restriction on the medicine. The legislation's main features include creating a new legal framework for cannabis, imposing taxes on the expanding cannabis businesses, expunging certain federal cannabis-related offenses from people's criminal histories, increasing research on the health effects of cannabis, and allocating federal funds to support people and communities harmed by the war on drugs.
The initiative, initially introduced in 2022, was spearheaded by Senators Chuck Schumer of New York, serving as a majority leader, Ron Wyden of Oregon chairing the Financial Security, and Cory Booker of New Jersey. Additionally, 15 other Senate Democrats have lent their support as co-sponsors.
On Wednesday, while addressing the Senate floor, Mr. Schumer, the first majority leader to advocate for the federal legalization, emphasized the detrimental impact of the nation's failed war on drugs, particularly on communities of color. He underscored the necessity of replacing this failed approach with a more equitable, sensible, and responsible cannabis regulation framework, the text reads. The reintroduction of the bill occurred just a day after the Justice Department proposed relaxing restrictions on cannabis and downgrading and classification on the controlled substances list. While this move did not meet the demands of some advocates and numerous Democrats, it indicated a significant shift in the Biden administration's stance towards cannabis policy liberalization.
Schumer said that reclassification of cannabis is undoubtedly overdue, yet it represents only a partial solution. Congress must acknowledge the evolving landscape and heed the call of the majority of the Americans for cannabis reform. It's time for legislation action to align with the public sentiment and scientific evidence. Despite the backing from prominent Democrats, the likelihood of legislation advancing in Congress during an election year remains slim, with Republicans, many of whom oppose federal cannabis legalization, controlling the House and endorsing the bill. Its prospects are future dimmed. Congressional functions have been hindered by deep internal divisions within the Republican Party in the House, with few imperative bills remaining. Proponents find limited opportunities to incorporate them into broader legislative agendas.
Former Obama, Bush, and Clinton administration drug policy advisor Kevin Sabet issued a warning about the dangers of legalization. He contended that legalization of cannabis will cause the sector to become more commercialized, drawing comparisons to the rise of Big Tobacco 2.0. As the current president of Smart Approaches to Cannabis, a anti-legalization advocacy group, Sabet urged against the commercialization of cannabis in the name of social justice, while acknowledging certain positive aspects of the bill, such as the expungement of criminal records and the removal of penalties for cannabis use. He stressed that legalization would essentially amplify the presence of a commercial industry.
He goes on to say that we must carefully consider the ramifications, especially in light of our detrimental experience with Big Tobacco, he says. We need to question whether this would truly be beneficial for our country. However, despite opposition from figures like Sabet, the legislation mirrors a growing trend of support among Democrats across the nation, transcending political divides in both Republican and Democratic-leaning states. This support for legalizing access to cannabis holds significant political value, particularly in anticipation of an expected election rematch between Biden and former President Trump.
There is broad support across the country for legalizing in one way or another. According to a January Pew Research Center study, 88% of Americans think cannabis should be allowed for either medicinal or recreational use. At the moment, adult recreational use of small amounts of cannabis is permitted in 24 states, while 38 states have approved its use for medical purposes. Furthermore, legalization of cannabis cannabis has often garnered broad support on state ballots whenever it has been advocated, frequently outperforming the popularity of politicians from either party. Proponents of legalization have stressed the significance of the issue as a political one and asked policymakers to consider it.
Political dynamics are such that politicians are finding it more and more difficult to obstruct cannabis policy reform, stated Morgan Fox, that's political director of NORML. The issue serves as a rallying point for those advocating cannabis policy reform. The Biden administration has been pushed to completely embrace legalization and include it more prominently in the president's re-election campaign by Representative Earl Blamauer of Oregon. He's a well-known proponent of cannabis legalization in Congress. According to Blumauer, the president should be able to better connect with young people on this topic. Although their support has been erratic, they could be crucial to outcome in November.
The president's shifting position on cannabis is reflected in the Biden administration's decision to reduce it on the list of prohibited narcotics. Thousands of people convicted on minor drug charges have received pardons from President Biden as part of his attempts to remedy racial imbalances in the criminal injustice. Oops, that was the total Freudian slip. In the criminal justice system, President Biden's position has been reiterated by White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who has stated that she is certain that no one should be in prison or prosecuted for the simple reason of consuming or having cannabis. Former President Trump's position on legalizing is more nuanced. In 2018, his administration authorized prosecutors to rigorously enforce federal cannabis restrictions in states that had relaxed their prohibitions. However, Trump later hinted at support for legalization proposals delegating legalization decisions for individual states, and he granted pardons to several nonviolent drug offenders.
Yeah, and he also canceled the Cole memo.
Yeah,
that told the states to go ahead and do the thing with cannabis. Yeah, which is it wasn't good. Morgan Fox noted the topic of cannabis hasn't been prominent feature in conversations, rallies, or media appearances. It remains uncertain how a potential future Trump administration would approach cannabis policy. Congress is currently deliberating on more incremental measures aimed at loosening restrictions on cannabis, such as granting legal cannabis businesses access to financial services. While some of these bills enjoy bipartisan support, the majority are unlikely to progress in the current Congress due to opposition from Republicans.
The bottom line, while Senate Democrats push forward with a comprehensive federal cannabis legalization bill, political hurdles loom large, particularly in a divided Congress and with opposition from Republicans. Despite growing public support and shifting stances with the Biden administration, the path to nationwide cannabis reform remains uncertain amidst ongoing debates and the upcoming November elections.
Oh, yeah, it's just been, for lack of a better word, shit show going on. It's just, yeah, it frustrates me. Reading and seeing all these things that should be going through and happening, you know, like the safe the banking acts and all this stuff. It should be going through, and you know, it just deals with opposition. All right, on to our last story of the day.
Coming to us from StratCan, more losses for Organigram in newest quarterly report.
Organigram reported another loss compared to the same period last year, according to the newest quarterly report for second quarter of fiscal 2024 that ended March 31st. The Moncton, New Brunswick-based company reported $37.6 million in net revenue for the first 3 months of 2024, compared to $39.5 in the first 3 months of 2023. That's a 5% decline. It also declined from $36.5 million in net revenue from the first quarter in 2024. Organigram attributes this decline to lower international revenue.
The majority of sales were in the Canadian non-medical market, 88% of them, while 6% were from the international market and 1% were in medical sales in Canada. Another 5% of sales were related to other revenues. What other revenues? Yeah. Revenue from sales of flour and oil on the international market for the 6 months ended in March 31st, 2024 were 3.2 million compared to 16.6 for the 6 months ended February 28th, 2023.
I guess got to back up a bit. 1% were in medical sales in Canada. That was it.
You want to know why? Because we all got hurt by them and we don't want to
Yeah.
buy from them anymore.
That's 1%. Wow. Organigram also reported continued price compression, with the average net selling price of recreational non-medical cannabis flower dropping to $1.51 per gram in the second quarter, compared to $1.81 per gram in the same period of the second quarter of 2023. Sales of flower from all product categories in the non-medical market was 51% of the company's total revenue in the quarter.
Organigram sold 16,811 kilograms of dried cannabis flower over the second quarter in 2024, an 18% increase from the same quarter in 2023. Net loss for the second quarter 2024 was 27.1 million, a 26.2% increase from the 7.5 million loss in the same quarter in 2023, which the company blames on lower unrealized gain on changes in the fair value of biological assets and change in fair value of derivative liabilities. That is also an increase compared to the first quarter of 2024 loss of 15.8 million.
Oh, it's just crazy. Adjusted EBITDA for the second quarter of 2024 was a negative $1 million compared to 5.6 in the second quarter of 2023, which the company blames on lower international sales compared to the second quarter of 2023. Now, Greg Guyette, he's the chief financial officer there. He says, our higher international sales in the second quarter of 2023 resulted in a comparatively lower adjusted gross margin rate in the second quarter of 2024. However, we are expecting international revenue to continue along the growth trajectory, and we have been seeing over the last 2 quarters, while lower cultivation costs, which we achieved beginning in the second quarter of 2024, begin to flow through to our income statement in the third quarter of 2024. As we head into the second half of our fiscal year, we are on track to deliver full year adjusted EBITDAs that will exceed that of fiscal 2023 and positive cash flow from operations before working capital changes.
Organigram completed its first bulk dried flower shipment to the German medical market in January of this year. The company also completed its first flower shipment to 4C Labs for distribution in the UK. In March, Organigram submitted a voluntary response to the Israeli government's claims of product dumping from Canadian cannabis companies. Organigram maintains that it has not engaged in these practices. Organigram submitted its EU GMP certification application for its Moncton facility in the first quarter of 2024 and expects to enter into an adult phase by the end of this fiscal year.
The company says it does not anticipate significant loss for non-performance except potentially from outstanding receivables from one of its international customers, which is not named. In a call discussing the results, Organigram CEO Benna Goldenberg said,
we signed 2 new supply agreements with medical cannabis suppliers in Australia and the UK, all while exploring additional opportunities and entirely new markets for Organigram. Our international revenue saw a significant decline versus the second quarter of the fiscal 2023, driven by a large reduction in sales to Israel as we await payment of an outstanding receivable. We are working with our Israeli customer on a payment plan and are optimistic that we will resume shipments to Israel in due course. That said, we are very encouraged by our return to international sales growth over the last 3 quarters, supported by our new international customers. In March of 2024, Organigram again received notification from Health Canada that its edible extract lozenges sold as Jolts are an edible, not an extract, and are subject to the 10 milligram THC limit for cannabis edibles rather than the 1,000 milligram THC limit for extracts.
Yeah, and in April, Organigram announced that the popular milled dry flower brand Shred has reached more than $200 million in annual retail sales. So that Shred product, is it already ground up? Doesn't it? Is it sort of like, you get a bag of tobacco?
I'm gonna, yeah. Like, I mean, I've not heard of the flower brand Shred, so I would have to do some looking into that. But it sounds like it's pre-milled.
It's already ground up already. That would help beneficial to some people dealing with arthritic. But yeah, again, these are recreational stores, right?
Yes.
So, all right, that's it. We got them all done.
We got them.
We went a little long, but we got them.
That's okay.
All right. Anything else before I sign us off?
No, I think we're good. We aren't here Monday, so I'll see everybody Tuesday.
That's right. Monday, we're off. It's a holiday here. It's May 2-4 weekend. The first season of party time, as some people like to say. So, that's right. All right. So our next news broadcast will be next Thursday with Glenn and I. Other than that, from the Legacy420.com news desk, that's the news for today. We hope you found it educational and informative. And we'd like to say thank you to Legacy420.com, Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and to our listeners and viewers for tuning into the broadcast. Other than that, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.